Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Monday, the first day of September 2025, and we continue to share with you the latest stories that have come across the wires, stories that have something to do with what the Bible talks about with respect to the time of the end of the age, particularly with the second coming of Jesus Christ and the many events that are predicted to precede it, as well as stories which we do for you that show the reliability of Scripture as archaeological finds all the time. Archaeological discoveries are showing that the historical accuracy of the Bible is incredible. It's trustworthy in everything that it says, whether it be past, present, or future. And that's what we do here on Breaking News every single day. Stories that have something to do with the reliability of Scripture and its predictions for the time of the end. Now, along this line, we have some really interesting headlines this morning, so let's get to them. From the Israel Security Cabinet by way of Jerusalem Post, Trump told me forget partial details, go with full force. This is what Netanyahu told the Security Cabinet last night. They had a 6-hour meeting, as we will find out, till 1:45 in the morning, talking about what they're going to do in Gaza City. Now, the next two headlines are really interesting because Israel is very serious about ridding the world of Hamas and enemies abroad. This is also from the Jerusalem Post. The next headline: From Hamas to Iran, Israel's arm is long and none of its enemies are immune. All right. And then Israel National News had this story from the chief of staff: Will reach the Hamas leaders abroad. This is a specific threat against Hamas leaders. And I remember the main leaders of Hamas are living in Qatar on these five-star hotels. Some of them are billionaires and they're cowards. They never go to Gaza. They just, make the people their cannon fodder and also the fighters of Hamas. And yet Israel's going to go after them now too. And we know Israel's capability of taking these people out. We've seen it happen. Remember when the leader there was in Iran at the funeral of there a while back of one of the Iranian president, and they took him out there. And again, the leaders in Hamas have been taken out. Hezbollah's lost 90% of its leaders, and just recently, of course, the whole cabinet, except for four people of the Houthis, their top ministers were taken out. So Israel is able to do it, and they're threatening this now. Now, on a story that's very important, we've been dealing with this subject. One of the former leaders of Trump's cabinet in the past, I remember get his exact job there. He talked about sanctions punishing Russia are needed to end the war. This is a Newsmax story, and what he said is something that we've talked about, but he's really laid it out for us. That if you really want to end the war, you've got to punish Russia, and you have to have huge sanctions against them. Now, like we said, Trump's got two choices: either put huge sanctions in place against Russia, and of course that would affect China and India and others, and Iran, others trading with Russia, buying the Russian oil, or he can just walk away from it and say, "Look, Europe, you figure it out." So we don't know what he's going to do. So this is an important issue because that war has to end sooner or later, and we'll see what happens. And then finally, an excellent article from Gatestone. French President Macron rewards terrorism, whips up slaughter. An excellent summary of what's going on with this thing they're going to do, this charade this month in New York about declaring a Palestinian state, which is a terrible joke. We have a Palestinian state. We've had one for 20 years in Gaza. It's called Hamas. And you see what happens when you have a Palestinian state next door to Israel. So we'll talk about that. All right. Also, too, what we did the other day is mention a couple of books that we strongly recommend if you're interested in reading further on some of the subjects we deal with. We talked about John McTernan's book called As America Has Done to Israel. We told you how you could get it. And then another book, Commentary on the Psalms by E.W. Hengstenberg, Volume 3, Psalm 79 through 150, where he has the most excellent exposition of Psalm 83 I've seen anywhere. If you're interested in that, we list those in our summary now. Today we have another one to list. This one is a tremendous book. It's called When the Stones Speak. We've talked about this before. The remarkable discovery of the city of David, what Israel's enemies don't want you to know, by a man named Doron Spielman. And it's a fascinating story. of the city of David. David's city, David's palace has been rediscovered in the past 15 years or so. It's below the old city of Jerusalem, below the Temple Mount. They're a few hundred yards below that. And the discoveries are incredible, showing the reliability of Scripture, that David was a king of a huge, empire, as it were, as Solomon was, not just some little backwater, situation, as the leftists and the minimalists, they're called, have said. So anyway, we've got that book also. Now, I don't hold them up because I did earlier when I try to do a broadcast, held up and the picture doesn't come out real well. It doesn't, for some reason, my camera doesn't pick up the book when I hold it up. So I'm going to read, I've read you the title. They're there on the summary page on our website and on our app. And so please check it out. All right, let's look at these stories. They are something else. And by the way, if my voice is a little raspy still, my wife and I are still getting over COVID. We've got quite a bit of let's put it this way, in the chest and the ears, a bit of congestion there. So we're getting there, but boy, this is a long haul, this COVID 2025. All right, let's get to the stories. First of all, headline one: Trump told me to forget partial details, go on with full force, Netanyahu told the security cabinet. The discussion centered on the conquest of Gaza City, with the military presenting its plans. Israel's Security Cabinet met on Sunday night to discuss the next steps in the operation to take over Gaza City as hostage families protested outside the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. Prime Minister Netanyahu said at the Security Cabinet meeting that U.S. President Donald Trump told him, forget the partial deals, go on with full force, finish it. During the discussion that lasted approximately 6 hours, National Security Minister Ben-Gvir requested a vote on the resolution, saying no to a partial deal, and Netanyahu said it's not necessary. There's no need for a vote because of our last cabinet meeting, we took that off the agenda. No partial deals, either a full deal or we, take over Gaza City. And that's the majority of the cabinet actually agreed with that. Now, unfortunately, the IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Zamir, expressed support for a partial deal and told the ministers there's a framework on the table. We need to take it. The operation in Gaza created conditions for the return of the hostages, and they gave him the thumbs down on that. The cabinet did not discuss this. They ended at 1:45 in the morning. And one of the important things about the meeting, the head of the IDF Hostages Directorate was not invited to the Security Cabinet meeting. In other words, no more partial deals, no more talking about deals, no more deal on the table. We're going to go into Gaza City. We're going to finish the job, as President Trump told Netanyahu to do. And this is, it's the right thing to do. Now, their choices aren't good. Whatever they do are not good, but they've got to do this. Now, the next two stories are interesting because it talks about Israel's desire to take out, as they've already done, these different leaders. We've seen it happen with the Hezbollah. 90% of their leaders are taken out. The Houthis lost their entire cabinet except for 4 members just last week. Hamas has lost many members, of course, not only in Gaza, but they lost, remember, overseas a while back in Iran. One was taken out. And so this article from the Jerusalem Post: from Hamas to Iran, Israel's arm is long and none of its enemies are immune. After nearly 2 years of war, Israelis know better than to believe that the killing of any one high-level official, even, for example, Hamas's head, Yahya Sinwar, will end the war. Israelis are no strangers to the bluster, bravado, and bombast of the enemies. From Hamas to Hezbollah to Iran, Israel's enemies proclaim victory even as they suffer defeat, boasting of apocalyptic capabilities that are pure illusion. But even by those standards, a statement Saturday night from Mahdi al-Mashat, head of the Houthi Supreme Political Council, stood out. His remarks came after Israel's precision strike on the Houthi leadership on Sana'a on Thursday killed the group's prime minister and several political and military leaders. In fact, killed all the leading people except for 4 in their cabinet. And yet they're still bragging about how they're winning the war, which is ridiculous. But this is the bluster they have, and they will have replacements. The replacements aren't nearly as good or as strong or have the leadership capabilities as the ones that have been eliminated. Now, along this line, we have this statement on headline number 3 from the Chief of Staff. It says, we'll reach the Hamas leaders abroad. I think this is from Israel National News, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Israel National News. We will reached the Hamas leaders abroad. The IDF chief of staff attends security assessment following the. Now, here's what's happened also the last day or so: the elimination of Hamas's military spokesman, Abu Obaida, stressing Israeli surprises their enemies, promising to reach every target in order to protect its security. What they said was kind of humorous. So there was no announcement from Hamas about Obaida being wiped out, being neutralized, because he's the person making the announcements. He's the one that was the spokesman who always came forth with the bluster and, talked about all the victories Hamas is receiving. Well, he got taken out too. He's one of the last big shots in Gaza that was taken out. And so they didn't have anybody to announce it. And that's how poor off they are. So anyway, Zamir said, the IDF is operating offensively with initiative and operational security across all arenas at all times, he said. In the Gaza Strip yesterday, we struck one of Hamas's senior leaders, Abu Obaida, after most of Hamas's leadership has already been eliminated. But here's the takeaway. Our actions are not yet complete. Most of the remaining Hamas leadership is abroad, and we will reach them as well. This step joins a series of significant IDF strikes in Yemen, we've seen with the Houthis, Lebanon, Syria, and other arenas. We are surprising, acting with initiative, and reaching every target in order to ensure the security of Israeli civilians. Remember the first day of the 12-day war, they wiped out all the leadership, the military leadership of Iran, and about 10 of their top scientists. So Israel is doing a tremendous job. And so what they're doing now, specific threats of these billionaires that are living in Doha, Qatar, that are never in Gaza, but calling the shots for Hamas, they're in the crosshairs now too. So we'll see them be neutralized, I imagine, sometime in the future. Now to shift gears here, this is a Newsmax story from a man named, what's his name? Fred Fleets. He's a former Trump National Security Council chief of staff, and he talked about Newsmax about what's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine. And the takeaway is sanctions punishing Russia needed to end the war. President Donald Trump, who initially pushed for an immediate ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, now has one option: economic sanctions against Moscow to help bring the end of the war. This from Fred Fleets, a former Trump National Security Council chief of staff. He told Newsmax this yesterday. He moved towards a comprehensive peace plan, which he wanted quickly, and he provided some pretty significant incentives for Putin to do this, Fleet said on Newsmax's Wake Up America weekend. Here's the but. But after Russian President Vladimir Putin continue with strikes on Ukraine, rejecting the ceasefire, there's no other way to get peace in Ukraine without punishing Russia and punishing it hard. It looks like Putin is not willing to listen to reason. We're going to have to turn to hurting Russia economically. And so the bottom line was, if U.S. is going to stay involved in this, they've got one choice, and that is to punish them economically. Russia is selling its oil to China. It's selling its oil to Iran. It's selling its oil to India. And Trump has talked about putting huge tariffs on these three countries if they buy Russian oil. So huge sanctions on these countries, anybody that buys Russian oil, to continue to hurt Russia's economy. Now, we'll see if that happens. Again, the other option, he may do this. He could just walk away from this, throw up his hands and say, look, this is your problem. This is not an American problem. You figure out what to do in Ukraine. So we'll wait and see now. This is what's fascinating here. And so this man Fleets made the case very clearly. If America is going to do something, they need to do it with like a full court press, do it all the way or not do it at all. What's Trump going to do? We will have to wait and see. And finally, headline number 5. French President Macron rewards terrorism, whips up slaughters. An excellent article from Gatestone. So Macron, as the story goes, actually regards these views, approving the October 7th, 2023 massacres of Jews and continuing terrorism to displace Israel, as legitimate aspirations. Good to know, the article sarcastically says at the beginning. Macron's call for an immediate ceasefire could save Hamas from destruction, exactly what Hamas and Qatar wants. France, the UK, Canada, and Australia have to see that the terrorist state they're about to recognize has no borders, no internationally recognized territory, and meets no criteria of any kind as required by the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States. This is from 1933, for a state to be recognized. Article 80 of the UN Charter preserves intact all the rights granted to Jews under the Mandate for Palestine, even after the mandate's expiry on May 14 to 15, 1948, as a direct direct result of Article 80, the UN cannot transfer these rights to any part of Palestine to any non-Jewish entity. This man named Howard Grief Esquire wrote September 22nd, 2011. France, the UK, and Canada, and Australia also realized that Israel cannot stop the war without the return of all the hostages. What would they do if their citizens were held hostage? Or are they already? If France, the UK, Canada, and Australia are so committed to the creation of a Palestinian state, surely they'll be happy to donate some of their plentiful land to it. Approximately 1,000 trucks were blocked for days because the United Nations refused to distribute the aid, leaving it to rot in the sun even after Israel offered UN military protection. Yet that doesn't hit the headlines, does it? November 2024, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, former Defense Minister Gallant. The ICC accused them, not Hamas, who stole most of the food, of crimes against humanity. Hamas is an organization with straightforwardly unhidden, basically, genocidal goals. Their continual demonization of Israel has sadly led to an increased hatred of Israel worldwide, a tiny country that, ironically, is fighting to protect the very countries defaming it. A thank you would be nice. What is at stake now is not only Israel's survival, but the need for democracies to understand the central danger confronting them and finally to start combating it. During the Second World War, all those grateful for the hard-won freedoms of the democratic world saw the only way out was not to compromise and submission, but a full destruction of the Third Reich, not giving it a state. All right, this is very well said. Israel must finish the job. And again, we look at what the scripture predicts about the future. We see Israel eventually feeling secure about its borders, as we've talked about before. The Russian invasion will occur when all things are in place, but as we've said time and time again, they're not yet. Libya has to have an army put together. They cannot do that right now. The U.S. is still involved in the Middle East. Iran is still a threat. And Israel is not feeling secure in its borders. Those things have to happen. Those four things have to be in place before Ezekiel 38:39 can take place. And they're not yet. They will be. And they're coming, but not yet. All right, that's the latest story. So much happening. I'm Don Stewart. Again, later today, we're going to talk about an example from the book When the Stones Speak about the trustworthiness of Scripture has been confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt with what was found in the city of David. Until then, as always, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, may the Lord richly, richly bless.